going to start. We're just going to put our consensus one seeds up there. I think we are all in agreement about who they are. Alabama, Houston, Kansas, Purdue. All right, we're gonna talk Purdue as the last team here. But before we do, real quick, Andy, this doesn't have to be a belabored discussion. But was there any thought, or maybe you had it this way? Is Kansas moving up that order? Are they close to passing Houston and possibly even passing Alabama? How far up can the Jayhawks get here as number one?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer. So I won't belabor it like you said, but I don't think it's an easy answer. If you look at where they were when the bracket reveal came out, you had Houston ahead of them, and Kansas was the fourth number one seed. I think even before Purdue had lost to IU this weekend, I had Kansas jumping over Purdue just based on their volume of wins. What becomes hard to figure out is what do they have to clear in order to get past Houston? Houston obviously hasn't lost since the reveal, nor has Kansas. And at what point do the quality wins that Kansas has just let them overtake Houston? I didn't do it that way for now, but I would have no argument with somebody who did. And quite honestly, I think once you make that argument, then you put them up against Alabama, and I'm not so sure that you couldn't make a similar argument there. So I think it's pretty close between Houston and Kansas right now. Certainly, if they're able to win at Texas over the weekend, I think that would probably be one that would leapfrog them. But for now, you're trying to hold true to what the committee showed us, but what they didn't show us was, is there a small gap or a wide one? And if it was pretty small to begin with, then I would say Kansas probably already has leapfrogged them. If it was a little bit wider, it's certainly closer than it was before.
That's the trick about knowing from the reveal. It's like, all right, how much do I carry this forward, or how much do I let things change after it with the new results we get? All right, Brad, I'll go to you for the big question. We'll get Andy's input on it too, because I think it's rather important at this stage. That fourth one seed, we've got Purdue on the line as our consensus. I think everybody still had them there of our group of bracketologists, but man, UCLA is creeping up there. 2 big road wins over the weekend. How close was it for you to having the Bruins pass Purdue for that last one seed spot?
Right now, not yet. I think what needs to happen for UCLA to pass Purdue, I think Purdue needs to lose again, and I think UCLA needs to beat Arizona State and Arizona to end the season. I think then UCLA can leapfrog Purdue. Because right now, Purdue is 4-2 against high Q1 opponents, whereas UCLA is 2-2. Purdue is better against Q1 opponents. They have a plethora of wins that UCLA may not have. UCLA's best win is at Maryland by 30, the only team to win at Maryland. That win is looking better and better by the day. But they don't necessarily have the upper echelon wins. Now, granted, Purdue doesn't have a top tier win either, aside from Gonzaga and Marquette are good wins. But away from home on the road, they don't have that. So I think they are vulnerable, and I think there is the possibility, if they lose again and UCLA wins out, that UCLA overtakes them.
Andy, do you see it similarly? And I'll add on, let you dig into this. Is there another team that is coming for that last one seed spot, or do we see too many losses with Texas losing and Arizona losing? So is it kind of come down to those two for you?
Right now it's down to those two, but I think Baylor and Texas are still pretty close behind them at this point. I think there's a bit of a drop off once you get past that. But in terms of Purdue and UCLA, I would agree with what Brad said. The other things I would add, Purdue's better in the resume metrics, a little bit worse in the quality metrics for what difference that makes. Purdue has, by my count, 8 wins against teams in the at-large field. Plus, they have a sweep of Penn State and a win at Michigan, who are in the mix just outside of that. Versus UCLA is just 4-4 against teams in the field. That doesn't include their sweep of Oregon, who to me is a little bit further away from the cut line there. So while UCLA's road win at Maryland is better than any road win that Purdue has, it gets really tough to evaluate, because even though when you look at UCLA, they've got 7 Q2 wins, well, 5 of those fall in the bottom part of Q2. So non-conference strength of schedule, they're right next to each other at 97 and 98. Purdue's road neutral record slightly better at 11-3 versus 10-4. So it wasn't as close as I thought it might be when I sat down to do the exercise. But I think if Purdue loses again, they've got at Wisconsin and then they host Illinois to close out the regular season. and UCLA wins both of its games against the Arizona schools, albeit at home, certainly the Arizona win would be another quality win, give them a sweep over Arizona State, who's in the last four in, first four out area of the bracket at this point. So I think it could flip, but I think Purdue needs to lose at least one more, and UCLA needs to just keep on winning. And then in terms of Baylor and Texas, to me, I had those right there. You can kind of take your pick as to which one of those you'd have ranked a bit higher. They have a lot of things in their resumes that are very, very similar to one another. As you look at it that way, Baylor's schedule down the stretch is a little bit easier. They go to Oklahoma State and host Iowa State, as opposed to going to TCU and hosting Kansas, which is what Texas has left. So those are the ones that are there. To me, I think Arizona's loss put them out of the mix. And then you get down to like a Kansas State who's in that area that just seems like a bridge too far for them to get that far up. So I think you're down to probably 7 teams for the one seeds at this point in terms of real consideration.
Makes sense. One last question on the one seeds before we move to bubble discussion. Brad, to you, Alabama still the number 1 overall seed, or is Houston coming? We know Kansas, like Andy said, is starting to put something together, but Alabama's still there for you right now?
Alabama's still there for me. And as Andy mentioned, there's a clear case for Kansas to be that number 1 with 18 quad 1 and 2 wins and 15 quad 1 wins. I mean, the numbers are ridiculous. And in Houston's case, I don't know if I see them passing Alabama as long as Alabama continues on the same path. But I will say, if Houston does lose a game to whether it's a non-tourney team or a team that maybe is on the fringe, there's a possibility of them dropping to a 2 seed. Probably if they lose to a non-tourney team, that's more realistic.
Okay, fair enough. All right.